Well, a very interesting panel for me. We have a group of very, I'd say, experienced customer success executives. And for me, the point of this discussion is really learn about the position and role of a Chief Customer Officer or a VP of Customer Success at the executive table. What I want to start is actually, if you can just describe a little bit about your customer success organization, and I think what's important, how many years you're actually practicing customer success, Marcus?
2. How old am I? Yeah, so nice to be here today. Marcus Bragg at Zendesk. We've been practicing customer success from the beginning. It looks a couple different ways for us. We have 2 different customer bases. We have an enterprise customer, and we have a velocity customer. And so I think a key part of your customer success strategy is understanding who is your customer and what is that journey. So specifically in customer success, we have pre-sales, pro-serve, customer success, training and enablement.
Excellent, excellent. I'm really happy to be here. So I've been in sales, customer success, account management, however you want to name it, probably for the last 20 years. I was the first non-engineering person to join Xamarin about 4.5 years ago. And I own sales and customer success, and that was the case from the very beginning. So we started literally the company with customer success in place, which I think was a good thing to do. We similarly to you, we have SMB, mid-market, corporate, enterprise customers. We also have a very thriving partner business. So very different areas of customer success within my team. And then my customer success team actually owns the revenue of the customer base. So renewal as well as expansion revenue lies within the customer success team's responsibility, which makes them actually very relevant from the get-go.
Thank you. Paul?
All right, great. So we started customer success at Burst in about 2010, so about 6 years into the journey. Under kind of my purview, we've got professional services, education, the customer success, account management function, the community, and support. So basically all the people post-sale who make you successful.
Matt, very good.
Thanks, Paul. Hi, I'm Matt Leary. It's great to be here. Our client management organization supports our account management organization at NetSuite. We do a lot of different work with them, and we coordinate across departments to bring people together to talk about situations we need to resolve for our customers.
Thanks. Customer success is actually the new kid on the block. While I think many companies, and probably most of the companies here, really understand that there should be a customer success executive, I think people are struggling with how do we earn a seat in the executive table? How do we, make ourselves equals versus those established sales, marketing, and other professionals? I think my first question is about how do you connect your team to established processes within the companies? There's sales processes, customer marketing processes, product adoption processes that have already been there for the last few years. How do you make sure that you as a customer success executive connect your team into that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, there's kind of 2 things to the first part of your question, which is I think customer success does have a seat at the table now. So I think we're at a point, too, where we need to stop asking and you just take the seat. I think starting that process, though, starts with the data. At Zendesk, one of the ways we originally formulated the group was looking at where and when the tickets were coming in from customers and what they were about. And one of the things that we found is that 70% of the questions from customers came in the first 90 days. And that allowed us then to say, okay, now that we understand the data, now what are the teams and resources that we needed to go about it? And then it became very easy to ask for the resources and money to align to the business process.
Okay.
And I agree with you, actually. I think it all starts with the math. If you're struggling to get a seat at the table, I think we did a lot of analysis on, for example, if a customer buys for the second time, the probability that they are going to buy for a third, fourth, fifth, and sixth time is so and so higher. So I think the math, you can clearly show how expensive it is to win a new customer and how much easier compared it is to win the same amount of dollars as expansion revenue with your existing customer base. I think that is an important conversation to have. And then I think, to work into existing processes, quite frankly, I think it starts with relationships. Okay. You need to build fantastic relationships with your peers, with your counterparts in engineering, in product, in marketing, because to start with, people work with people, and I think that is always extremely important.
Yeah, and a major part of customer success is relationship with your customers and with your team. Paul?
Yeah, we started kind of with the fundamental thesis that the renewal rates were going to get better, and actually did for about 6 months. Ran a pilot of accounts that had CSMs and accounts that didn't, and in fact the renewal rates were much better than we expected, which was great. Kind of rolled out the team, the kind of upsell and some of the more advanced math we've been getting into, but that was the first value case, which I think probably many of us started with. So, and in terms of getting a seat at the table, I cheated. I helped start the company, and said having come from product management, I actually just found the customer side more interesting. I've always preferred engineering to physics, and in this case, it's when the customers use the product that it becomes real. So that was the part that kind of got me excited about the role, and I started at the table, which again, it was cheating.
Matt, NetSuite is a big company, so I'm sure there's a lot of complicated processes. How do you weave your customer success organization into those processes?
We actually bring the customer success organization into we bring the table to them, right? We try to bring all of the various people in the organization that are faced towards this customer problem together to discuss what we're going to do, come up with a plan, and then execute that plan. So often that means support, professional services, and account management are all coordinating to resolve a problem and then moving it out. And when people from those various departments go back to their departments and talk about that interaction, they realize the power of learning about the customer experience and learning about how our product is being used, and learning about what the value that they can gain from that insight about future product development is. And we find to get a lot of engagement from that connection.
What about established process like upsell? Who's responsible for upsell in your company? Is that the customer success team? Is that the sales team?
For us, it's the success team. So the account ownership literally moves from sales to customer success with the handover after having done the sale. And the CSM has almost a very similar profile to the salesperson. I actually believe sales and customer success should be one and the same thing.
Okay.
The salesperson should start out with the customer success in mind. I think that really sets you up for long-term relationships. And I would even be so controversial as to say that there are certain customers we shouldn't even be selling to. A customer that will not be happy or using the product in the long term should actually not be sold to. So I like very much the ownership within success. There is a risk, obviously, to kind of lose perspective of everything else, the onboarding, the health, and the engagement, and just have another sales team, which we always have to be careful not to have. Yeah.
It's interesting. So yeah, it's always fun if you get to veto a deal that's going to go bad. Even though you're not always the most popular person in the room when you do it. We've actually divorced upsell from the CSM side. We've allowed up to a certain dollar amount. So if it's like, hey, I need 2 more seats, you don't have to get a salesperson in. Just do the order, reduce the friction. But in terms of trying to make sure that our customers always feel like the CSM is on their side of the table with their success in mind, just not wanting to approach, obviously, if you've got it combined, you manage it, but we didn't just kind of designed it out. Right? So the customer knows that the CSM is always their advocate and their kind of trusted advisor, hopefully, in terms of how they're doing things and how they can change their business and how they can succeed. They bring the salesperson in if there's a significant expansion.
Matt, with NetSuite, upsells?
Upsells and the renewal are owned by the account management organization at NetSuite. So we provide the trusted advisor role, much like you do, Paul, and we look at it from that perspective. Now, this is also a time when I think the entire industry is going through transformation, and Totango being a part of that disruptive force inside the industry, I can see it changing that environment a lot over the course of the next 10 years. It'll be fun to see what we're all saying in 10 years from that perspective, because there was a good argument made earlier today for the trusted advisor is the one you'd want to buy from. And that's an interesting notion, because one person doing all of that, that's a lot of work for one person. How do you find that expert to do that, right? I mean, that's one of the biggest pieces that I think about.
Yeah, I think what I like about this is that there's no one truth that it fits everybody, and this is an example. Each one of the companies here actually execute customer success differently, and that's great, as long as the results are great. Let's speak about some friction point. I think one of the friction point that a customer success executive has, we spoke about sales, so do we veto a deal or not? What about product? How are we making sure we're influencing the product roadmap because we're representing the customers? Anybody can share some best practices on that?
Well, there's always a place for us to have a big role in what the product team is seeing from the customer base. I'll give you a short example. I'll not bore you too much, but there has been some work that we've done in the last year around a particular feature that was important to customers, and they were using it in a manner that caused them to run into some roadblocks. And we met with the customers, we met with the product team, we talked to them about how to do that, and then we instituted some changes in the product so the next time the customer would make that particular step with their ERP, they would be notified that they were about to go through this lengthy process that they didn't want to experience. So they were able to opt out at that very moment, which was a way of allowing the customer to continue with the behavior that they wanted, but give them the understanding of what the impact would be at a future state. That was due to a collaboration with a lot of different people across the business, and the product team fully endorsed that activity because it meant that we could make long-term changes slowly and still have the customers aware of what was happening inside their toolkit. That's
I think we do two interesting things at Zendesk. One, from a transparency perspective, all of the CSAT responses from customers get posted into the internal social network, and so the good and the bad. And so you have to have trust within the organization to do that because it becomes very transparent. But then you quickly see if it's a sales issue, a service issue, or a product issue, and it's kind of there for everyone to see. But that creates a healthy tension in the org. I think for our enterprise business, we really think about aligning certain people in the success organization who are responsible for as you're doing the quarterly business reviews or things like that with your larger customers, collecting those feedback, and then when we go to as a collective team, we'll vote internally within sales and success, and then we'll go back to engineering and say this is where we'd spend our $5 as one way to give input into that roadmap.
Yeah, we've got some interesting challenges because the analytics space is moving so quickly from a technology stack standpoint. We've done, I think, a reasonably good job of kind of bringing forward the more visionary customers who want to do relatively transformative things that are pretty visionary and getting them engaged with engineering. In exchange, we get to also engage the unhappy customers who want us to fix a few things here and there. But being that kind of helping inform the roadmap going forward and helping kind of spackle together a couple things that aren't making this account happy for whatever reason. It's worked relatively well, and we've got in the process kind of a product council across the company that includes a number of my organizations, plus the SEs and a couple other folks. Where as we're releasing new major features, they go through and everyone's got to sign off on it and kind of buy in. So we've got a voice on the way in and we've got a voice on the way out. And if support's not ready to support it, education's not ready to train on it, the SEs aren't ready to demo, the feature doesn't go. So it's a good way to get kind of the organization behind the new features when they go.
And I would probably take it even one step further. I think a couple of things we've done really well is as we have added products to our offering, we started out with one product, then added product number 2, 3, and 4. Customers actually didn't only influence the roadmap, they actually created these products. We created these products with our customers. We were asking our best, largest, most cutting-edge customers, what else would you need from us? And then literally with a blank PowerPoint, started to build these new products. And then it is not a surprise that, yes, the products are selling, because customers have literally been asking us for these products or solutions to be added to our main offering. That was a lot of work. And you need, I think, a very advanced technical leadership to be willing to do that, not go off into the dark room and hack on something cool just because you think it's cool. But having this customer-minded way of creating new offerings, I think, is a fantastic way to guarantee success of sales numbers later on.
One of the things we've actually started doing in Tutanga in product, and we have our chief product officer here, Maxim, that you saw yesterday. We're actually dedicated 30% of our engineering resources for what we call customer love release. So the customer success team is actually responsible to suggest these are the features that are needed, simply because of the feedback they're getting from the customer. It's been very successful so far. So we spoke about friction in sales in product. What about marketing, customer marketing? Is that something that you think should be owned by customer success, should be owned by marketing? Well, obviously the answer is customer success.
Roger says yes.
That's right. That's great. So yeah, so in kind of my remit of our enterprise go-to-market at Zendesk, so I have our enterprise campaign marketing for new and existing customers. Then we have corporate marketing, which is a separate function. But so we've been able to start aligning that marketing experience, that sales experience, and that customer success in kind of one cohesive string and life cycle and understanding. So yes, I would say yes.
Anybody else? Marketing?
I can very much see the advantage of that. I think that is great. For us, it is marketing supports both sales and customer success. It works really well, I think, because we work well together with the marketing team in general, and the head of marketing is very clear on the fact that a big portion of our revenue is expansion revenue from existing accounts. Mm-hmm. So the allocation of resources is never kind of is never being disputed. But I can see how in a different setup that might be more difficult, and how Marcus's way of organizing that can be extremely beneficial. Yeah.
So marketing owns both customer marketing and new marketing. The inevitable gravity of the new license bookings, however, has been a bit of a challenge. Not that they're not great people to work with, but the voice, the messages. I mean, everything is so different on the customer side. I've been campaigning actively to get a piece of that customer marketing in kind of my org, where we can keep that voice more consistently and have it be a little less kind of product centric and a little more change and how you manage your analytics is a transformative thing when you roll it out, handling some of those other messages too, and not just our core differentiators and how we can change the world for you. But.
Right. The other piece behind that is that many of our customers have different uses of it and different experiences with it. And I think back to the topic about the customer success movement having a huge impact, we're starting to look at the customer life cycle in a much different way than we had before, and the customer experiences and how those go through and what we do after those. And I think the marketing teams across the globe are starting to adapt to that and make changes. I know we're very fortunate in NetSuite to have the team we have doing what they're doing for us, and they're looking at a number of ways we can improve that communication throughout the customer life cycle, and not just in year one, but in year, how does it change as you go from year 1 to year 10? And you make sure you refresh your use of the product continually and optimize that continually. And I think that's marketing's role, and that's their core competency. And we can learn a lot from how to do that from that organization and get that support that we need.
So, we want to speak about owning a seat at the table, the executive table. And for me, one of the most important parts of owning an executive seat is our KPIs. Mm-hmm. What are the KPIs that you're using in order to actually make sure there's an alignment between the executive team? And is there actually any shared KPI between you and other executives in the companies? Why don't we start this time with the other side? So,
okay. As you know, the NetSuite platform provides you with a rich availability of KPIs to work with across the business, and that's one of the core features that we bring to our customers. And we use it internally across the organization to monitor adoption, to monitor customers at various critical stages, 30 days in after their go live, the first renewal, the first major upgrade that occurs in their environment, and the amount of use that they use of our free test environments for that. Sorry for all the shameless plugs, but I thought I'd throw those 3 in right there and be done with it. I'm finished. But at the end of the day, it's the running of metrics inside the organization is very important, and some of the teams have ones that they depend on more heavily than others. So in my client management team, I'll be looking at the number of escalations and the kind of cases that customers are bringing in, whereas our account management team might be looking at some of the older, more traditional versions, churn, retention rates, and things of that nature. But we do share those across the business so people understand how they're doing.
So we've got some shared metrics. We are an analytics company. We probably have a few too many metrics rattling around. The good news is we do have a lot of data-driven conversations, which is great. Probably the most powerful shared ones, we're held to fundamentally the most powerful metrics. My part of the org are going to be at-bats, total renewals, and same-store sales, or dollar on dollar, depending on what you call it. The upsell portion of that is shared with sales. Kind of both teams get credit for that. I've worked pretty hard to push metrics on having kind of the customers for life organization engaged in the sales cycle to make sure that we're setting the right expectations, and then the kind of the go live percentages, in X days, Y days, Z days. And those aren't shared yet, but I'm now sharing them with the executives, and I hope that I'll soon get them hooked on those numbers too.
Are you planning to share it with the entire company or just with the executives?
My entire org knows what those numbers are.
Okay.
We have it in a space that people can log in and look. I haven't shared that bit with the rest of the org yet, but so there's no secret. But just haven't gotten to the point where, other than me presenting it, they don't see it.
So we're obviously looking at all the regular success KPIs like churn and renewal and expansion, all of that. Two aspects I think are important for us. One is NPS. Whenever there's an NPS survey, actually the entire executive team together takes a long time to review in detail the customer's answers, the good and the bad, and we talk about that, and many things get resolved really quickly that way. I think that is something that helps us a lot. And then for us, I think a customer really only becomes a customer when they are able to use the product for the purpose that they bought it for. For us, that means building mobile applications. So we are measuring the fact that customers have finally built and launched an app with our product. That can be 2 months after purchase for large organizations and complex mobile applications. That can be 10, 11, 12 months after purchase. But that is the important point when a customer, for us, actually only really turns into a customer. Just because they bought subscriptions doesn't really make them a customer. Only once they've used the product for the purpose that they bought it for, in my opinion, are they actually becoming a customer.
Well, Stephanie, I think this is a very interesting metric, but are you the only owner of this metric or other executives? For example, one would say that if the salesperson didn't sell the right thing, then it'll take more time. If product isn't mature enough, then it'll take more time. So how is that being managed?
So we actually talk about that in the sense that on the product side, it is very important to make the product easy to use. On the training side, it's important to deliver the training content so people can learn quickly. We have a very technical product that we sell. So there's other executives that look at that and talk to me about that. I think nobody else gets actually owns that number.
And Marcus and Zendesk?
Yeah, I think, again, the same on, that churn and expansion. I think, as a public company, we share net dollar expansion as one of our public metrics that we think about internally on that lifetime value. And, certainly, if you're in the SaaS business, you're in the land and expand model. So it is important to figure out how to reduce that friction up front and then continue it on the back side there. But yeah, when we get down into departments, then pro serve and training and those things, you get into some of the consistent ones with that net dollar.
So one of the interesting KPIs that I'm sharing with our Chief Product Officer is about product adoption. So again, we have some generic KPIs about how many monthly active users and how many license utilization, but also specific, are they using the product for specific use cases? And we both agree that it's our job to make it happen, my customer success team and the product team. So this is something that we both report to the management team and for the board. I think one of the most important things for a successful customer success executive to do is to influence the culture of the company. How do you make sure you build, let's say, a customer-focused culture with the company?
I'll take that. Get it rolling. I think that's a very important piece of the whole industry, the movement, what we're talking about here. This is something that I've worked on for a lot of years at NetSuite, is pulling together the various departments across the business to give them a view of the customer experience. Because many times we have organizations that do wonderful things, but they do it in a silo, perhaps. And we try to reduce that as much as possible through programs that we run to bring, as I said earlier, we bring support, professional services, technical account management, education services, product, and and other departments that might impact, like finance, into a conversation on a regular basis to talk about risk in various areas of the business and what steps we should take to do that. And sometimes it's coordinating with product people to find the best use of the product. Other times it's coordinating with PS people to find what is the best practice or the leading practice to deploy for that customer at that particular point. And it's very helpful to get that conversation started and to get people engaged in the business of focusing on the customer. And we find that to be essentially successful and long running. It's been in place for a long time, and I look forward to it continuing in the future.
So I've got one advantage which is not necessarily repeatable, and one advantage that I think has worked pretty well, or one tactic that has worked pretty well. I wrote the core values for the company. I put customer success first. That was awesome.
Yeah.
We have it in our boardroom. It is the first core value. And we make sure we train everyone on those when they come in. So that helps. I think one of the things that has actually been very effective as a tactic is executives definitely fall prey to the recency bias. So we've done a pretty good job of pulling everyone, product people into certain accounts, not just when they're red, but also when they're doing more visionary customers and want to do some things, getting them to have personal relationships with some of the ones that we think would be kind of the most beneficial. We're rolling out an official executive sponsor program right now because this has worked pretty well, but pulling executives into these accounts in the sales cycle, making sure they stay engaged post-sale, has done a pretty good job because they can, these become faces to them, and they know these people and what they're doing, and it's kind of fun when one of their customers has something go wrong. Suddenly, like, it's so important. Why aren't you? Yeah, I know. We've got hundreds of others, but I want you to respond this way when they have problems too. And it's actually worked out pretty well. So that was actually a pretty effective little ploy.
Do you find yourself using or introducing other team members that are not customer success team to customers, like taking them to meet customers?
Yes.
Is that successful?
Yeah, I think it's actually really, really important, and it starts with the executive team. I think the entire executive team, CEO, CTO, VP product, needs to be excited about meeting customers. I think you wrote it into the core values. Without customers, there is no company. And quite frankly, if you are a customer success manager or a customer success executive looking to join a company, if that is not the case, if the top level executives are not excited about customers, don't work there. There is a lot of exciting companies to go. I think it starts at the top, and any executive in the company on a regular basis should be meeting with customers and should be wanting to meet with customers. It shouldn't be something that you need to force to make happen. Yeah.
I think transparency is the key. I go back to kind of what I said earlier. What I think is so neat at Zendesk is this ability where you're just publishing all of the CSAT, good and bad, internally onto the internal social network. There's just no hiding behind it, and it's there. And but again, you got to have the trust there to be able to be that transparent. So that's just such an easy one to do that makes it so transparent.
Does anybody celebrate customer success wins? I know sales are celebrating all the time, hopefully, like you see the bell ring all the time. Any best practices on how to make sure that people enjoy customer success?
The go lives is always a great one. We we try to really celebrate the go lives with the customer and take those pictures and celebrate those internally when they get because that's when they're going to really start seeing the value. So really kind of monitoring that go live perspective is one fun way to really do it.
Yeah. I would agree. Yeah, go lives and for us significant upsells in the enterprise accounts. When you've got someone's going from this departmental use case to a much bigger one. But that's the other kind of happy, fun, let's throw the confetti moment.
Well, there's also, we have an internal system with an ability to nominate our colleagues for doing something really, really outstanding and out of the normal pale. And that is the place where we share a lot of the excitement about taking customers from a bad place into a good place. And we do that internally, and then we do it at the end of a quarter with various awards that we give out. And there's also, there was some notion of someone saying the customer success managers are not President's Club attendees. We pick one or two and try to get them involved in that on a regular basis because that is the big celebration point, and it does set some people apart and make them feel as if they're a part of that whole that whole team getting the job done.
Yeah, I think it's very important because, and close to my heart, because I think I once spoke about customer success is like working in a hospital. And most of the time, or some of the time, you're dealing with the bad cases. It's really important to have a routine, to have process, to celebrate wins, because there are a lot of wins. Go lives are great, upsells if you're responsible. We have a board of customer quotes. Whenever a customer gives us a quote, it's something that you can actually celebrate. So we need to remember not just only the bad things, but also the good things.
And
but,
we actually,
yeah.
we have a system of spiffs where people can actually win prizes or money for getting customer quotes or customer case studies, videos, press releases. And that kind of actually helps us to get a lot of information on the cool things that our customers are doing through the CSMs. And then we kind of present the application of, a company uses an iPad to support heart surgery, an application built with Xamarin. So that's cool stuff. And then we present that to the team and kind of celebrate that. But it is harder to celebrate than the sales numbers, which are so obvious. You just send the email and everybody's happy. Yeah.
Well, culture is being open, and being open is about the good things, but also the bad things. How open are you when things are not well, when a major customer just cancel or complaining? How do you send this information? How are you sending this information to the entire company?
Yeah, entire company I think is different on how you're like reviewing those. Daily we're within the kind of the directors and above, we're sharing different sales numbers, but we do kind of show if there are churns or contractions. Did someone downsize? Did someone leave? And we're sharing those daily. But it can be tough on how you share that, understanding it, and why.
Anybody else?
Yeah, we don't send corporate-wide emails when we lose a customer.
But for example, do you have a process that from time to time you select case studies of these are customers that canceled, and make sure the information is distributed not just for the customer success team. Engineer needs to know about it, the product team needs to know about it, sales teams need to know about it. Mm-hmm. Any best practices on how to share this information with the relevant people? I know it's difficult, right?
I don't think we're good at that.
Okay.
I don't know if I want to get to the point where we've hit scale where I have to get good at that. So I'll leave that problem for a later day.
Yeah, we go through that information in smaller relevant groups. And then within the executive team, very, very transparently. We've been lucky also so far that there has been a smaller percentage. I guess maybe over time, you'd be forced to to have a wider audience to share that with. Mm-hmm. I'm not quite sure. I'd rather get better at having that number be smaller and smaller, I think.
Or again, focusing with, solutions that do the warning indicator before you get to that, and then sharing that broadly, I think is a lot easier.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, having a good solid understanding of the status of your account before that red light clicks off is, I think, one of the missions of this entire industry, is to really understand where they are and what's going on, and so we can see these events that occur that we don't want to have happen. It would be great to have acquisition and going out of business as the only reason why we lose customers, but we know that there's another piece of that, and we, as a maturing industry, will face that. At this point, monitoring, I think, is the key piece, and tools like what you're bringing to the table are really helpful in that ability to see things start to move in the wrong direction and then take action. You can't save them all, but you can certainly save a lot more of them than you ever imagined if you know what's going on.
Well, we see that, again, different companies execute customer success sometimes differently, and I think that's great. So, we spoke about data, we spoke about processes, we spoke about KPIs, friction point, culture. If I'm a young customer success executive or want to be a customer success executive, is there any final tip that you want to share with us? How would you earn the seat in the executive table that we haven't discovered yet?
Well, let's start by knowing the business really well. Let's understand what it is we're selling, why we're selling it, why they're buying it, and immerse yourself as much as you can in your industry and in all of the players in the industry, so you have a solid knowledge of what's going on out there and where you fit in as a company, and then commit yourself to the overall success of the venture. That takes different forms for different people, but I think the base the beginning of all of that is a really strong knowledge of what you want to do and have your heart in it and let people see that fire in the belly so that the mentors around you, there's all of them, they're everywhere, will help you build that fire in the belly and drive your own personal success. And I think that kind of work is where you start and take it from there.
Yeah, I would argue certainly know how your product can change the lives of your customers. Mm-hmm. In terms of getting a seat at the table, I mean, the math, and I've been fairly persnickety about this. The sales drives bookings, customers for life drives revenue, and I've been relatively pushy on that point, probably annoyingly so. But if you look at even a company that's grown 100% per year, half of your bookings are going to come from renewals and half will come from new sales. And about 2/3 of your revenue this year are going to come from your existing customers. And how you don't have a seat at the table if you're representing 2/3 of the revenue this year and half of all bookings, I don't know. I would not work there. So that was a relatively, again, I cheated in the way I did it. It's a pretty effective club with which to beat the other executives and get a seat at the table.
Yeah.
And so the advice that I would give anybody is really to pick and choose the right company and the right team. I think it starts with the attitude of the other executives, and it starts with the product teams wanting to build products that delight your customers. The other day I actually heard for the first time the phrase, you need to build products that hunt. So you want to build products that are so good that customers really want to use them, and then there are small hurdles to overcome here and there, but choose an executive team that you work with that is really focused on customer success and delighting your customers, and a product team that is determined to not accept anything but absolute excellence with regards to the software or the product that they build for you. I think those two aspects are really important.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of commonalities here, but I think, Matt, as you said, it was the seats at the table are around revenue and expense, and the board meetings and quarterly reports are around revenue and expense. And so, people within the customer success profession, you already passionately care about solving problems and enabling success. So you've already got that, but it is understanding the business and then, understanding how you're eliminating friction to enable more revenue or keep that revenue, or how you're scaling the organization either in a cheaper or more effective way, or the ability to repurpose that expense to some new initiative around that. And when the words and vernacular start having that conversation, you've already got the success side, so it's add the business side to it to get the seat.
Great. Thank you very much for sharing your knowledge with us. It was great.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, guys.